Hello everyone, welcome to today's presentation on issue that is not only pertinent but imperative in today's world, gender equality. Before we dive into the heart of the matter, let me pose a question to all of you. What's come to your mind when you hear the term gender equality? Perhaps it conjures up image of women and men standing side by side, equal opportunities in the workplace, or breaking down stereotypes and biases. Or maybe it's a reminder of the ongoing struggle for rights, recognition, and respectful for all genders. No matter what thoughts spring to mind, it's an undeniable that gender equality is not just a buzzword or a distant dream. It's a fundamental human right enshrined in numerous international agreements and declarations. Yet, despite the progress we have made, the journey toward true equality is far from over. Today, we are here to explore the current landscape, discuss the challenges we face, and most importantly, brainstorm actionable steps to move forward. As we embark on this journey together, let's keep in mind the words of renowned feminist and activist Gloria Steinem, who said the story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor to any one organization, but to the collective effort of all who care about human rights. So, let's join hands, open our minds, and commit to being agents of change in their pursuit of gender equality.
In 1995, the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing set out a progressive blueprint for advancing women's rights. But 26 years later, progress on gender equality, women's empowerment, and health is too slow and uneven. The COVID-19 pandemic has also reversed the progress that was achieved. We must do much better, and we can.
We must work together to promote and respect the rights of women and girls in all their diversity by ensuring they have access to quality, rights-based and affordable comprehensive sexual and reproductive health services.
We must prevent violence against women and children and ensure health systems can better support and care for survivors of violence.
We must promote women's leadership in the health and care workforce, including by ensuring decent working conditions.
We must stop non-curable diseases, including by ensuring that women and girls have the time, opportunities, and resources to access nutritious diets and to engage in activities that promote their health.
And we must take down the bias to women's participation in leadership, in science, and invest in research that prioritizes the health and well-being of all women everywhere.
We must put our heads and hearts together and work harder and faster to make women's health and gender equality a reality for all.
We must do much better, and we can.
Gender equality, also known as sexual equality or equality of sex, is the state of equal ease of access to resource and opportunity regardless of gender, including economic participation and decision-making, and a state of value different behavior, aspiration, and needs equally, regardless of gender. The suffragette movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries fought for women's right to vote in countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. This movement laid the foundation for a broader effort to achieve gender equality in other areas of life. The United Nations has played a significant role in promoting gender equality on a global scale. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1948, states that Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in the Declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religions, political or other opinions, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. This declaration laid the groundwork of subsequent international agreements and initiatives aimed at advancing gender equality. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religions, political or other opinions, national or social origins, property, birth, or other status. The women's rights movement of the 1960s and 1970s, often referred to as the second wave of feminism, brought renewed attention to issues such as reproductive rights, workplace discrimination, and gender-based violence. This movement leads to significant legal and social changes, including the passage of law prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sex and the establishment of institutions and organizations dedicated to advancing women's rights. In recent decades, feminist activists and scholars have increasingly recognized the importance of intersectionality in understanding and addressing gender inequality. Intersectionality acknowledges that individuals experience multiple forms of oppression and discrimination based on factors such as race, ethnicity, class, sexuality, and disability, in addition to gender. Intersectional approach to gender equality seeks to address the unique challenge faced by marginalized communities and promoting more inclusive and equitable solutions.
In 2015, the United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs), aimed at addressing global challenges such as poverty, inequality, and climate change. Goal 5 of the SDGs specifically targets gender equality and women's empowerment, calling for an end to discrimination and violence against women and girls and the promotion of equal opportunities in all spheres of life. Despite significant progress in recent decades, gender inequality persists in many parts of the world. Women and girls continue to face barriers to education, employment, health care, and political participation, and gender-based violence remains a pervasive problem. Efforts to achieve gender equality require continued advocacy, policy reform, and social change at the local, national, and global levels. Important solutions and approaches for long-term change are eliminating gender discrimination and injustice by having a law or regulation that can be controlled to ensure impartiality and no prejudice happened regardless of whether the person is male or female or has expressions that differ from the gender at birth. Raising awareness of gender equality in society is also an important solution. Gender equality refers to human beings of all genders, ages, and statuses having equal human rights. Everyone should respect and honor each other as humans, without discrimination. The government should back gender equality programs and organizations. Case Study 1. Argentina. A joint effort towards family-friendly policy.
Equity between men and women is an important societal priority, but it's also good for business. Companies with diverse management teams are 21% more likely to be profitable than their competitors with fewer women in management. How do we unlock better results for our businesses and our society? The first thing to understand is the gap in women in leadership and in earnings between men and women is primarily a result of women being saddled with unequal caregiving responsibilities. And without a good paid parental leave policy, many women return to work in as little as 2 weeks after giving birth, depriving them of the time they need to heal and bond with their children. The lack of access to affordable childcare and education results in many women leaving the labor force entirely, sacrificing their careers and incomes. But gender equity is not just a women's issue. Men need family-friendly policies too, and they need a work culture that supports their sharing caregiving more equally. It's difficult for women and men alike to find a healthy work-life balance and to lead happy, productive lives. To break the cycle, we need family-friendly policies that support women and men reaching their full potential at the workplace without sacrificing the well-being of their families. To take action, please support comprehensive paid parental leave, universal access to quality, affordable early childhood care, flexible work schedules, and other family-friendly policies. This is the best way to achieve gender equity, a better work-life balance for men and women, as well as the better results for companies that come from diverse management teams. Visit us online to learn how you can help.
Case Study 1. Children are left by parents. In Argentina, only 19% of children under 3 years of age access childcare and early child education. An estimated 50% of parents have access to parental leave with the legislated national maternity leave being under the ILO minimum recommendation of 14 weeks and paternity leave being one of the shortest in the region at 2 consecutive days. Private sector employees in a small minority of companies fare better, with 6% offering more than the legislated 90 days of maternity leave. It is estimated that 6 days is the average length of paternity leave across the private sector workforce. 2/3 of companies provide for breastfeeding breaks, but less than 10% of companies have a place for breastfeeding. In the absence of a public sector parental and child care regime, an estimated 6% of children are left alone or with another child under 10 years, and there is a 20% gender gap in labor force participation rates. Case Study 1. UNICEF Edit Law. Since 2016, UNICEF has been working to revise family leave legislation and access for both parents and to promote comprehensive early childhood policy alongside technical advice to the executive and legislature on family-friendly policies and affordable child care. UNICEF has advocated for change in gender social norms relating to care responsibilities. UNICEF has promoted equal sharing of care roles and highlighted the social, emotional, and cognitive benefits for children through communications campaigns and other initiatives.
Case Study 1. Women can live to look for children.
To promote women's participation in the labor force and encourage early childhood care and support, UNICEF Argentina is working with government and private sector partners to promote family-friendly policies.
Case Study 1. UNICEF launched and prosecuted companies that care. To leverage the role of the private sector, UNICEF launched Unpressed Kittima, a strategic alliance with entirely 30 leading corporations. UNICEF has led family-friendly dialogues and produced numerous digital self-assessment workbooks and toolkits for companies, Chamber of Commerce and trade unions to champion this agenda. The guidance emphasizes the gender equality imperative and shared benefit of shared parental care. This case study covers the work of the HOPEM network in Mozambique, established in 2009 and consisting of 25 civil society organizations and activities. The network focuses on promotion, advocacy, and lobbying for a new masculinity, while seeking to provide men with skills to enable them to actively contribute toward overcoming gender inequality by promoting and upholding the human rights of women. HOPEM engagement as stakeholders, challenging stereotypes, negative behaviors, and attitudes in gender relations. The document focuses on 3 projects: the Men in the Kitchen program, which encourages greater domestic engagement; the Art Without Violence, which combines the art and activism to challenge stereotypes; and A Man Who is the Man, which is based around a weekly TV debate. Case Study 3: Closing the Gender Gap in Sweden.
Women earn 79 cents for every dollar men make. And while that statistic is factually correct, there's a lot it doesn't tell you. It simply compares the median wages of men and women who work full-time. It doesn't tell you how the wage gap plays out for women with different educational levels or different ages who work in different fields. And you need that information if you want to start closing the wage gap. Part of the wage gap reflects the fact that women are concentrated in lower-paying occupations. But to fully understand the issue, you have to look within occupations, too. Back in 2009, 3 economists set out to understand the wage gap by following a group of MBA graduates from the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. They looked at thousands of men and women who graduated between 1990 and 2006. And their data showed that men had slightly higher salaries right out of the gate. 1 year out of business school, women were making an average salary of $115,000, while men earned $130,000. But 9 years out of business school, things looked really different. Men were earning an average salary of $400,000, while women were earning 60% less, $250,000 on average. The gap had widened considerably. But research suggests the gap doesn't stay that wide, that it shrinks as women enter middle age. This chart shows how the wage gap for college graduates changes as women age. The lower the line, the bigger the wage gap between men and women. If you look at women born in 1973, you can see the wage gap growing as they go from their mid-20s to their mid-30s. Better than previous generations, but heading in the same direction. Same thing for women born in 1968. The pay difference between men and women continues to grow as they move from their mid-30s to their mid-40s. And for women born in 1948, things started off the same. The gap widens as they get older, but then all of a sudden it starts shrinking. As women approach their 50s and 60s, the difference between men's and women's salaries actually gets smaller and smaller, which makes sense if you think about what often happens during a woman's 20s and 30s. In the Chicago MBA study, women with kids had a wage gap twice as large as women without. The truth is that women still take on a disproportionate share of child-rearing tasks. A survey from Pew found that in 2-parent households, women did more than men when it came to managing kids' schedules, taking care of them when they're sick, and handling the majority of household chores. And that was a survey where both parents worked full-time. But these additional responsibilities, they seem to hurt some women more than others. This is a really key research finding from Claudia Golden, an economist at Harvard, who is a leading researcher on the gender wage gap. She shows this by exploring how gender pay gaps vary in different fields, and this is one of her charts. Each of the dots is a different higher paying job. The lower the dot, the larger the gender pay gap, and the further to the right, the more the job pays, based on the average income of men in that job. These green dots represent jobs in the tech sector, and for the most part, the jobs are pretty close to the zero line, meaning the difference in pay for men and women is really small. The same is true for jobs in science, the yellow dots. But look at these red dots. They represent jobs in business, and they're mostly clustered towards the middle and the bottom of the chart, meaning they have some of the largest wage gaps. And there's a fairly simple way to explain some of these differences. Some jobs require really specific hours, and others are more flexible. Take your prototypical businesswoman. Maybe she's a venture capitalist, maybe she's an accountant. Either way, she has a pretty standard 9-to-5 schedule, so she can meet with other business people or with clients, and if she's not available to her clients when they need her, her bosses won't think she's doing a good job. Now, compare that to a scientist who works in a lab. Most of her work is self-directed, and it doesn't really matter when she runs her experiments, as long as she gets them done. If she gets her work done, her bosses think she's doing a good job. For the millions of women in jobs that demand very specific hours, the wage gap is larger than it is for women in jobs with more flexible hours. And there's one job where we can see this really clearly. In the 1970s, women pharmacists earned about 66% of what men did. Pharmacies used to be mostly independent businesses, where a single pharmacist might be responsible for keeping a shop open whenever people needed it. Today, most pharmacies are owned by large chains, and they stay open longer, which means they need more pharmacists. Women pharmacists now have a lot more options, and a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift is just as good as a 9-to-5 shift. Nobody really gets rewarded for working exceptionally long hours. And the wage gap for pharmacists has shrunk dramatically. Today, female pharmacists make 92% of what their male counterparts do. Of course, we can't all be pharmacists. There will always be jobs where it's important to work particular hours. But there are also lots of jobs where hours could potentially become more flexible than they are right now. And the research tells us that the more we can make that work, the more the wage gap is going to shrink.
Swedish women earn 14% less than men, a pay gap just below the OECD average, and higher than in many countries with comparable female employment rate. Lower pay not only deprive women of higher learning in the short term, but it also exposes them to higher poverty risk after retirement due to lower pension contribution over the course of their life as well as to longer expected life. The incidence of poverty among retired women is much higher than among retired men. In Sweden, 13% of available parental leave is reserved to fathers. Women are severely underrepresented among business owners. Sweden since showcase Sweden policy, such as gender-neutral parental leave, equal pay initiative, and women in position of power. Sweden policy for solving gender inequality include Equality in the Workplace, the Discrimination Act, which came into force in 2009, demanded employers not only actively promote equality between men and women, but also take measures against harassment. Sweden is also strive for equal pay for equal work. The Discrimination Act states that employers and employees should work actively to even out the pay gap between the sex. Equal family policy. The first country in the world to replace gender-specific maternity leave with gender-neutral parental leave. The so-called parental insurance enables parents to take 6 months of work per child, with each parent entitled to half of the days. Positions of power in November 2021. Magdalena Andersson of the then ruling Social Democrat Party became Sweden's first ever female prime minister. Her spell came to an end in 2022 following the general election and a change of government. After the 2022 election, there were 188 men and 161 women in the Riksdag, the Swedish parliament, and of the 23 ministers currently serving under Prime Minister, 11 are women. According to Statistics Sweden biannual report on gender equality from 2022, women held 67% of executive positions in the public sector during 2020.
As we come to the end of our journey together, let's leave this space today and carry forward the insight gained, the conversation sparked, and the commitment made. Let's challenge stereotype and advocate for policies that promote gender equality in all spheres of life. Remember change being with us in our action, our words, and our attitudes. Let's continue to stand in solidarity with all those who strive for a world where gender is no longer a barrier to success, happiness, and fulfillment. Thank you.